Welcome to Sports CTO Talks. In this series, we would be connecting with industry leaders from the sports and technology domain. I am Ami, your guide on this journey through amazing mind of tech leaders who are shaping the future of sports. We will dive deep into discussions driving the innovations of the industry, from AI to cloud, from cybersecurity to sustainability. If it is sports tech, we are talking about it. Today, we are joined by 𝗚𝗏_Prakash, the co-founder and CTO of 𝗚𝗏_AI. We welcome you, Akshat, to the podcast.
Yeah, Ami, thank you for having me. It's great to be on.
Absolutely. 𝗚𝗏_AI is a company pioneering into real-time AI dubbing and translation to make sports, entertainment, and content accessible across for more than 150 plus languages. Akshat brings deep expertise in AI, machine learning, and scalable infrastructure. And under his leadership, 𝗚𝗏_AI has been at the forefront of transforming how fans around the world experience live sports. Today, we will dive deep into discussions about how multilingual AI can change the way sports are consumed globally, the technical challenges behind the real time translation, and what the future of sports broadcasting might look like. So, Akshat, my first question to you on the podcast is which regions, sports, or formats are driving the strongest demand for multilingual AI coverage? And how do you, as an organization, prioritize the languages or the dialects to support it?
Yeah, it's a great question, and of course, prioritization, especially when you're building a startup, is really important. So there are certain verticals we as a company, as 𝗚𝗏_AI, focus on. And as you mentioned briefly at the start, like for us, that's sports media entertainment. I mean, that's pretty large itself, but within sports, let's say, we focus on sports like basketball, baseball, cricket, football, soccer. And I think, as I'm enumerating this, it's also pretty obvious that most sports leagues, teams, broadcasters have a need to go international and go global. And, when most of people, when we started the company, folks looked at this as like, as you briefly mentioned, AI dubbing. And the first thing that somebody thinks about is like, oh, you could use it for Netflix. But that's the kind of obvious thing if you're outside of the sports industry. And if you're in the sports industry, most senior leaders, execs, and people realize that they need a scalable way to reach global audiences as the next kind of, let's say, growth curve for these sports,
Correct.
right? We've been, especially American sports, very limited just within North America, although it has has the potential to be like for 8 billion fans. And that can't happen without you speaking the fans' language, starting
Correct.
right from the content to distribution, to social media and anything in between, right? Um, so to answer the second part of your question on languages we focus, so today what we claim is that we are comfortable to live stream in the world's top 25 most spoken languages
Okay.
live at broadcast.
In live sports, when you were saying this, in live sports, even a second of delay can disrupt the viewing experience. Like that
Yeah,
is my experience. So, this is a question from me. So,
yeah,
what is the target latency from source commentary to dubbed output? And, the whole process, just explain us that. How does that work?
yeah. Yeah, that's a very good question. It's very obvious observation. Like if, one is making content more accessible, but if you can't do that in a way that fans can actually watch, it's not very useful. And
Correct.
one of the main things there is latency. Now, what people often confuse this with is they think that we are skewing the video and audio. So, like the Spanish will be 1 second delayed from the English. That's really not how it works. When we deliver to glass to fans and viewing experiences,
Okay.
it is all fully synchronized, right?
Okay.
And that sounds like kind of like a unicorn impossible. Like you, of course, are doing so much in this entire stack of real-time conversion into multiple languages. There is, of course, some processing latency, right? But the way we work is we actually create a parallel feed and add in additional audio PIDs to the source track. And so that way the original feed can go through as is, and then broadcasters get this secondary feed with their source commentary, which is usually English, in addition to all the other multilingual tracks. And so it's almost from a broadcasting point of view, it kind of feels like the source feed at which it starts was born multilingual. And that's where we're able to integrate really fast into really large broadcasting enterprises, really large leagues. Like when we were doing the NASCAR thing, and we live streamed the Mexico City race in Spanish, I think we just had a few hours available to us for integration. And the end product of those like few hours was that there was Spanish commentary being live streamed to the official NASCAR app, right? And then we did the full weekend of races into Spanish real time for real fans in real time, right? So um, that's kind of how we work, and that's how we preserve the fan experience fully. And there's actually, on the fan viewing perspective, there's no like, skew between the video and audio. Of course, this means that the secondary feed may lag the original source feed by like a few seconds, 15 seconds. But then what that means is like, this feed is fully ready for international distribution and consumption.
Like, if you could share with us, like, what techniques are used to help minimize the delay into the translation or the dubbing, and how does that work?
Yeah, so historically, how people have tried to solve the problem of speech-to-speech translation is tie together a few APIs, like you convert speech to text, you then
Yes.
translate it using something like Google Translate, and then you do text to speech. Unfortunately, it's a very broken process. It suffers a lot of context loss, and the quality output of these traditional techniques are not very robust. In fact, even outside the category of sports, people have been trying to achieve this for 20 years,
Okay.
but they've failed, right? And the reason for that is not only does it cause a massive quality loss, but also significant delay because you have to basically go from one modality to another and back and forth. And, so it really doesn't work out, especially in a broadcast scenario. So we actually, outside the sports world, we're known as a significant AI company in the space of voice AI that has been building its own proprietary models. A lot of the technology that you'll see that has come out of CAM is we have open sourced some of our prior models. Our text-to-speech models are the first generative speech models on both AWS Bedrock and Google Model Garden. And where I'm coming at this from is for us, building all this technology around translation and speech wasn't about building conversational agents or like transcribing calls or something. It was always about solving this problem of live speech-to-speech translation. And so fundamentally, how we architected our machine learning models, how we architected our techniques was to solve for live speech-to-speech broadcast quality translation. And so it's just a fundamental like decision and goal that we kept for ourselves that we wanted to solve this problem. And so by the very nature of it, every last decision to its first was always about how do we create cool speech and translation models so that we solve this end-to-end speech-to-speech localization problem. And it's that has really borne fruit because it's safe to say, knock on wood, that we have probably the most complete localization stack for sports enterprise today, especially when it comes to live broadcasting. And, as of today in 2025, when we started live streaming in, I think, the beginning of 2024, every major event that has been live streamed into multiple languages has had CAM-AI technology behind it.
Okay.
And that's the kind of trust we've developed with the sports world.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when you're talking about this, like, right now, when you use AI to replicate the voices, so how do you ensure that the commentator's voice preserves, like, the style, the pacing, the emotional connect with the audience, the language? How does that work?
Yeah, so that's our, a lot of this is in open research today already. I mean, being able to kind of clone somebody's voice, which has lent its own stigma in usage or emotion, etc., is in open research and has been in a while. Today, there are tools where you can kind of clone your voice and do it to a decent degree. However, as we know in the sports world, it is the most unforgiving type of content, right? There's fans in the background, there's multiple commentators. even if you isolated one commentator, that commentator is going from angry to sad to shouting to screaming, to using weird lingo that, and the lovely thing about sports is it's such a complex problem towards AI because it has all things that make this problem hard, right? As I explained here. And I like to joke with my friends that, like, in the sports industry, that often if you take a person that doesn't watch a particular sport, even though they speak English, they will not be able to understand it.
Correct.
And that perspective is really important. Like, you want to kind of think about this in a way that you can literally take a real human, right? And who speaks English and maybe even another language, and even they won't understand what's going on. So
True.
how unsurmountable is this problem for artificial intelligence, right? And that's really the delta we've covered. It's not about being able to level with a human. It's about even surpassing certain human capabilities, domain expertise, and all these things that an AI is actually able to deliver better. So that's one perspective on it. So again, when we look at some voice cloning tools today, they fail really miserably on sports
Okay.
because of the nature and complexity of it. If it was a simple telephonic conversation where you wanted to have a nice human-like sounding voice, it might be very good for that. But if it's, your favorite NASCAR commentator or your favorite MLB commentator, the modern AI that's out in public purview and what people know about in the B2C world just doesn't work. It fails miserably. And so our text-to-speech model, MARS, which is multilingual autoaggressive speech, is again ground up built for very hard domain use cases like sports and entertainment, where speech patterns change continuously, where emotion changes continuously, where speaker identity changes continuously, but you still have to keep that same love of the game, the love of the content. And it's that model, and that model we also sell by itself because it's a very powerful text-to-speech model outside of our end-to-end localization stack. And that's why, as I mentioned, whether it's like you go on Google today or AWS today or Hugging Face today, or just like, you stumble onto our GitHub, we have actually open sourced some of these technologies, the prior iterations of them, so that we can continue to also contribute to the wider AI research space, and hopefully, get like really cool people to work with us along the way.
Okay. And with this comment tree, and like there are a lot of overlapping sounds, like the crowd noise, the whistles, multiple speakers speaking. So like while translating, how do you manage that it remains clear, immersive? Like what is the pre-processing, the post-processing methods which help you achieve all this?
Yeah, so that's again another point, because even if you get the commentary right with multiple speakers, even if you get the translations perfect, you still have that layer of the game is only defined by the fans
Correct.
type of thing. And that's very true for any sport, right? Whether you talk about cricket, football, soccer, and any sport, you need the fans, you need the umpire calls, like that whole vibe of the game and the buzz, you need that. And so our models are, we have, as you mentioned, there's a lot of pre-processing and post-processing techniques. We're able to often isolate fully the background from, the foreground commentary and what's important and what's actually speech, translate that, and then kind of repackage it all in real time. And often this is like more technically speaking, sometimes it's not a problem at all in certain partners that we have, because in live commentary and live broadcast, often these stems are separated. Often, like the commentary track is actually wired into a separate like audio pit and audio channel, versus like the background, etc., is in a different audio channel. So that also like helps and kind of circumvents the problem, and the final output is quite nice.
Okay. So like the real time dubbing, when we talk about it, it is a scale, it consumes huge compute resources. So
Mhm.
what strategies you as an organization use, like, what are the model like compression, edge computing, or optimizing to
Yeah.
maintain the cost efficiency, to reduce the energy? Like what, like how does that work?
Yeah, so the best way I try to put it, and actually it's something that I remember from a talk we gave at Sports Business Journal this year, where we kicked off the AI track. I remember specifically saying that at least me personally, I believe that companies in AI that will win in the long term are companies that control all three layers of their stack, which is product, infra, and foundational. And this doesn't always mean that you have to build your own models, or even build your own infra, or even build your own product, but you should have a team that can operate across all three stacks and know what they're doing across all three kind of layers. Because sure, we can, to your point, we can build great models and whatnot and have great results, but if we can't scale that and serve like millions and billions of fans across time zones, across geographies, it doesn't mean squat, right? And so as much as building like the model layer is significantly challenging, it in itself is pushing the bleeding edge of where AI exists today in speech and translation. Equally so is important on what we do at an infra layer. And I think all of us have used tools like ChatGPT and Midjourney and whatnot. Um, these are significantly, I would even like to say they're significantly easier to scale, given how much, push there is behind it. Of course, the scale at which they're operating is, quite a bit different than CamBI. We're not, of course, OpenAI yet, but we're still talking about batch processing, as in you come as a user, you give an input, then you wait, and then you get an output, right? And so it's more fundamental to how people scale machine learning models. But here we're talking about a completely different paradigm. We're talking about the fact that we have to live stream an entire event or a sports game or anything across borders and make sure that we have not a second or millisecond of downtime.
Correct.
And that means like we have to be able to do super inference, super orchestration. Nothing like it has to be perfect engineering, right?
Absolutely.
The way I like to think about it is like doing something live on sports with a true AI intervention is like launching a rocket every time. Like you can have the best engineers in the world, you can be SpaceX and whatnot, but your rocket launch still can go wrong, right? Like you never know when a rocket launch could go wrong. And but of course there's ultimate success in being able to launch a rocket. Everybody wants to be able to reach that zenith of engineering to launch a rocket. And that's very much what can like well, every time we run a live stream, it feels like launching a rocket. And yeah, this time, touch wood, and by the grace of God, we've reached to quite, I mean, it's quite significant when you think about it from an engineering feat alone, quite significant of how we're able to keep the trains running on time, sort of thing for whatever event it could be. It could be in Japan, it could be in Australia, it could be in Europe, it could be North America. We are streaming for all of our customers across the globe. And of course, since it's live, it's like, there's no room for downtime at all. So that's kind of how I think about, as our sports industry grows in the next like 10, 15 years, what companies on the bleeding edge of technology have an edge versus others. And that said, I mean, there's going to be continually value addition in each layer. But I think if you want to do something completely different and completely new, you need to be able to control all three layers of your stack.
Absolutely. So, like when you were talking about this, like in today's times, there are so many OTT platforms, there are broadcasters, commercial models, like licensing, subscriptions, so many multiple things. And you have to gain traction at multiple in
Yeah.
devices and everything. So, how do you balance the cost? Is the value small in the smaller markets where English is not a main language? How does
Mhm.
that work?
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, like it's a problem kind of thinking about it working backwards. So the ultimate goal for any OTT platform, any subscription-driven service, any broadcaster, any league, is to reach as many viewers and fans as possible. I mean, that's at the end of the day fundamentally what it is, right? And right now, there's like 8 billion people on the planet, roughly speaking, right? And so it's not to do really with like it's whether it's a small market or not. It's making sure that you can create new markets and you don't get left out. So I have reasonable like um intel to believe, and since I'm in the industry, that like if you're not already investing in global expansion, it doesn't need to be multilingual live streaming or dubbing or whatnot. If you're not thinking about how to like scalable strategies to go global, there are other sports that will come in and capture most of the world, right? And actually, unapologetically, if you think about the sports world today, cricket is a huge example of that. Cricket is one of the biggest sports that has been growing internationally, and you know when you go to somebody in the US, like they're always surprised that like, oh, I don't know cricket was so big. I don't know the IPL was so big. Like that's kind of crazy. It's just right up there with the NFL. So, we really need to kind of together in the sports world get out of this bubble and think about the entire world as one for sports. And I think that's kind of where the ultimate value lies. So it's time to stop thinking about like which market is like smaller, or where to go first. Of course, like we said as well, it's 25 languages that covers most of the planet. And so I think it's important to look at it from that lens. So, where are the biggest pools of fans in those languages and the shortest amount of time to get to them. And that could be anything. It could just be starting with social media. It could just be making your posters multilingual, your adverts multilingual.
Correct.
Any beginning is a beginning, but if you're not thinking about it at all, like there are other sports that are going to become more popular because they're reaching everyone.
Absolutely. So, like, what trade-offs have you found as a co-founder, like for using a single multilingual model versus the separate models for each language? And how do you scale the infrastructure for that?
Yeah, so I mean the nice thing is that when you train like so there are pros and cons of it potentially. Um, when you train us one model for a specific language, you can actually get it really, really right. Unfortunately, nobody's looking to just go into one additional languages. If you want to go multilingual, especially with AI, you have the option of going to 10, 15 immediately, right? And so just by customer demand and customer expectations, we wouldn't be building, it wouldn't make sense to build a company just to take, maybe there's an argument for that, but it wouldn't make sense, at least for us, to go into just one additional language. So fundamentally, commercially speaking, just business wise speaking, you want to create a model that can support many languages. And once you start thinking about that, like hosting, doing inference, and like maintaining separate models and training them for each different language is like not scalable, right? Maybe it's an approach. I don't think so that that's the right way. For example, we have two or three models that cover most of our languages, right? Sometimes there are, kind of fine-tuned baby versions of the models that we do specifically for specific geographies when we get more data. So a great example of that is we announced a partnership with NBC, which is the largest media group in the Arab world, and we have access to kind of their content, their proprietary content, to fine tune models like our Bully and Mars, which is our translation and speech models for Arabic content. So that's been our approach, and the nice thing about that is like as much languages are different, they are also similar in many ways. And for example, there's Germanic languages, there's Indic languages, right? So the languages have their own pools. And so when you create like models that are more kind of multilingual, you do benefit from that cross learning, transfer learning, and shared learning between these language structures as well. So the fact that we can support many Indic languages today means that like when somebody comes with a request for another Indic language that we don't support, potentially let's say Bhojpuri, right? It's much easier for us to support that because we already support like 10, 15 Indian languages, right?
Correct.
So
All right. So, like when we talk about this, like there might be some legal hurdles because it's global deployment of multiple languages. So, how do you manage it from, voice rights to commentators to contracts to
Yeah,
translations? There are so many things involved. So, how do you
absolutely.
manage that?
Yeah, so that's also where kind of um one of the first questions was like, and you mentioned voice cloning and stuff. One was like, oh, like how can you take my voice to replicate it and stuff? And often that's not an issue. Like as much as people think it's a problem, like commentators love it, everyone loves it. It happens with everyone's consent, written and legal
Okay,
wise and everything. But also it's true that we are a B2B business. We're not really a B2C company. You won't find us on, Twitter every day, like making noise or like, pushing ads to people and whatnot. We're a B2B company and we only work with large enterprises that own rights, not even to the content, but rights to distribute that content. So that already cuts out like a majority of the problem. Like we're working with the people who are like literally have the rights to distribute it in
correct.
certain geographies and languages. But then the other one is the voice cloning part. And you know, it's always a knee-jerk reaction sometimes, people less and less so because people have gotten over it, but it's always a knee-jerk reaction like, oh, how can you clone my voice, etc. So even in cases where it's like really um kind of, let's say it's like a wall to climb over, it's not really, because today in with artificial intelligence you can synthesize very human sounding voices, which are very true to sports and commentary and whatever you're doing with CAM-AI, whether that's media entertainment, and you don't need to replicate the original voice at all. You can have a completely synthetically generated voice that does not belong to anybody born, dead, alive, or will ever be born, right? And that way, it's just like, it's a completely AI voice. It's very human sounding, very natural. When you hear it, you're like, oh wow, this is like really how I would hear, some league, the NBA, let's say in Spanish, right? Um, and so it's even in cases where some people have like an issue around that, like we're still able to deliver voices that are just fine and there's no kind of legal issues around it.
Absolutely. So, like, have you encountered any human oversights when you do all this? Like, as you were discussing, that AI is doing a great job. So, like, what are the human oversights which happen or have happened, and how can you rectify that?
Yeah, so it's always like precaution rather than medicine later type of thing. Especially it's in live, there's no margin for error.
Correct.
Because if you think about VOD or social media, we have a full SaaS platform today which offers all the language localization tools you would want, from VOD to live and all that. So we're a complete suite. So if you signed up to our SaaS platform and you uploaded a video, you can still make edits and whatnot, right? Um, but in live you don't have that opportunity. Like it's live, it's so fast, and it's the latencies are like, you need to get the latencies and offsets so right that even if you wanted to, you cannot insert a human in the loop to do anything. They just wouldn't be able to do anything meaningful, right? Like in like 20 seconds being able to like manage the entire thing, like coming in and out. So it's more about how we prep, how we deliver to the market and what works. So fundamentally speaking, like at CAM-AI, as many there are researchers and engineers, there are also linguists, and we really pride ourselves on that, because for us, like the quality of what we deliver is, it's more than the league's logo on it, it's our logo on it. And it's actually funny, like we of course respect what the manager or the league has to say on what they think the output is, but often we kind of just like, when we stream, it's all out there on Twitter, on social media. We kind of just like pay attention to what the fans are saying, and the fans do like it. Like again, like taking the example of the NASCAR race, like it was it went semi-viral on Twitter, and a lot of fans had to say a lot of things. And then like my marketing manager, he said like, oh, like a lot of people are commenting about it. I was like, oh no, let's see what the social media
Yes.
mafia have to say to us.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
and surprisingly, like people like had like I think 99% of it was like extremely positive comments. They were like, "Okay, I can't believe that it's now like fully available in Spanish." Of course, there's always the guy who just wants to be hard and wants to be heard on social media but like you know, that's kind of what we prep for. So we have a ton of linguists when we're developing our models, when we're kind of testing our models. These linguists tell us whether it sounds like something they would pay money to watch. And until they say that, we don't even show it to the customers, right? So we don't claim that like we stream 150 languages as good as we stream those top 25, right? But we
Correct.
do claim that if you wanted to broadcast with us, you could go live with those 25 languages, right? And so that's a lot of the prep that goes in. And also when we launch with a league, especially a major league or big sports team, it's not always like, we pressed a button and it went live the day of, right? There's always smoke tests that happen. There's always
Obviously.
when we did the Australian Open, we did a week of live tests with them leading up to the semifinal and final of 2025 with continuously, fans and like A/B testing and people actually watching it real time before everyone was like, all right, we're convinced this actually works. We're gonna go live. So
So
it's a lot of that goes into it. So it's not like you eliminate a lot of the chance of like things going wrong, and we have a ton of guardrails which are deterministic that prevent the AI from hallucinating something it shouldn't, saying something it shouldn't.
correct.
Um, because I'm not gonna, stand here and pretend that like I've reinvented machine learning and AI. Like these are all real things, and they're no matter how minor the probability is, we also, make sure to put in these guardrails so that nothing can go while going live, right? And so
Absolutely.
it's this whole like it's like the prep before the mission type of thing which counts, which lets us live stream flawlessly.
So, like, when you were talking about the fans, so, like, have you disclosed the commentary that it is AI generated? And has that affected? You said, like, there were positive reviews on Twitter. So,
Yeah.
like, has the trust got affected, or are people more adoptive? Like, what is the overall feeling?
Yeah, I think, the way I would put it is like if Chat GPT didn't happen and if the world didn't know about AI, it would have been definitely something like, oh, it seems like we're being handed second class content, like being completely transparent, right? It could have been that. But in this world of AI, everyone is AI first. Like there's not a single human today that doesn't probably, I mean, anybody on the internet probably knows a bit about what AI is.
Correct.
And when you think about it, that's actually huge. There's very, very few concepts worldwide that people would have a collective conscience about, and artificial intelligence is one of those things. So it's very commonplace, like whether it's on Zoom or whether it's on anything that we do, like people are already ingrained in some or the other way with AI tools and AI workflows. And so it's not like, oh, it's AI. Like we're not having that reaction at all. I mean, of course, it's just people who want to be hard and want to like have a spotlight on them to be like, oh, and you could get a commentator, etc., to do that. And let's we can humor that argument as well. But actually, I don't think people realize what it takes to live stream something. I mean, forget about us, forget about CamBI. I don't think people truly understand what it takes to get a game to all these screens at once. People like Netflix have tried and failed, and it's pretty public. And and Netflix is one of the most respectable engineering teams in the
In
world,
the
right?
world.
People, it's well known in Silicon Valley that like you have to be somebody and really, really good to be able to do be in Netflix and do engineering at Netflix. And it goes to show that, getting live is really, really, really hard. I mean, we're just going off of um, Zuckerberg's demo that he gave with the glasses, where those
Yes.
glasses failed like 3 times doing a live demo. Doing anything live, especially something like sports that goes on for hours to hit global screens,
It's
is
difficult.
like you have to really believe in God to be able to get that done, right? And now we're talking about a future where we want to layer that up in 10 languages. How do you operationally, like just think about a world without AI, how do you operationally scale your live streaming ops into 10 languages. Forget about 100 and 150. Like forget about 10, even do 3. You start to see it's like it's incredibly hard, right? And as much as people want to think about like, oh, AI human commentator or not, it's often impossible to even get these people. There are not enough people that even do this stuff in every language to get it. So it's not about actually in this domain about localizing content. It's not even about replacing jobs because if it was an argument about, oh, you're taking somebody's job, it's not even about that. There's just nobody to do the job
Yes,
at the
exactly.
time that's needed for like hours on end, for days on end. It just simply does not exist. And so AI is truly the right solution in this if leagues want to reach 8 billion fans. And, push and shove, it's still relatively a new bleeding edge technology and stuff. There's no doubt in my mind that 5 years from now, you will open the TV screen, watching your favorite cricket match, your favorite basketball game. It will be available in the language of your choice, in the dialect of your choice. Heck, like 5 years from now, it wouldn't be crazy to say that even if you spoke a specific locale of the dialect or something that you spoke in that specific, place that you're from, you could watch it in that with personalized commentary. And that's not going to happen with, just like always having a human in place. What I expect is going to happen is the top, let's say, 5 or 6 languages will still, of course, be human driven, but everything else, especially for second tier sports or second tier leagues and globally, it's actually all going to be AI.
Absolutely. So, like, when there is so many things involved in live streaming, there is one major question which keeps coming onto mind. Like, how do you address the sustainability challenges, like the compute cost, the carbon footprint, because it is all large scale multilingual, operations at the end. So, how is that taken care of?
Yeah, when we work with our cloud partners, that is one of the things that we often think about because as a cloud business, it's a pretty interesting business to be doing because let's say what happens, right? Let's say you're live streaming in English. When you're live streaming in Spanish and all these other languages, you're basically increasing your footprint of compute and storage, right? Even if you scale to like, let's say 50 languages, you might have like 2x or 3x your footprint at a good reward. You're reaching like billions more people, right? Um, but what that means is, to your point, like you do need to kind of think about the sustainability of compute and whatnot. But the nice thing about that is that CAMBAI isn't OpenAI yet, like I said, right? And we don't have millions of GPUs to train like, hundreds of billions of parameters of large models. We only have like a few GPUs, a few tens of GPUs, let's say, in the order. And what that means is like fundamentally, we could have only created smaller models, right?
Okay.
Smaller models that do extremely well, that are very specialized towards translation and speech. But what that also means is that since we've created smaller models, they can be deployed on premise, they take much less compute capacity to run, and they're much more scalable, right? And so for us, that's kind of like, there will always be a question of sustainability and how you continue to expand. But on the flip side, like if there was a sustainable way to do it, CAMBAI would be the right way to think about it in creating smaller models that were very efficient, and today that can even run on device.
Okay. Last question to you, Akshat, is like looking ahead when you see the future of sports technology, when we are talking about it in the next 2 to 5 years, what are a few breakthroughs you are expecting to see? Or, like, yeah, this is it, this is going to happen. What is next now into
Yeah, I
this
think
space?
Yeah, in sports, the two obvious breakthroughs are going to be, workflow and operational efficiency within sports leagues and such, 100%. Like it is no doubt that every sports league and team and such will make their own operations more efficient with AI. But then the second part of it on the fan side is AI is going to revolutionize personalized fan engagement like no other technology has. And language localization is one component of it, actually. When you think about it, it's at the end of the day, it is fan personalization that we're talking about. But in the near future, you're going to see amazing breakthroughs in accessibility of content to not even think about the language, but the way you're making content available for people that might not be able to have the same access to content as me and you can, right? People of determination and coming from different backgrounds and such. So we are on the precipice of making fan engagement truly personalized. And while localization and accessibility is maybe the starting piece of it, in the future, what you're going to see is let's say commentary just for Akshat or just for Ami, right? Like when a game is going on, how does Akshat want to hear this game getting commentated? What type of things are going to happen? And that is why, it's kind of like the sports world, of course, within commentary, within content, must become more pro AI, because the fan and viewer expectations are going to default to that, right? And you can already see this, like Google and Apple just launched like real-time voice translation calling and
Yes.
such. It is very, very clear in my mind that it's going to be a default expectation for any person on the planet in the next 5 years that when they open their screen, there's going to be like hyper personalized content to them, to their language, to their taste, to what they prefer viewing. And AI is actually the only solution towards that. So if we're not pro AI and we're not pro AI towards content, sports might not be one of the most watched types of content. Maybe people are going to start watching different types of content because it's more personalized to them. So not to kind of think about this in a doomsday scenario, there's significant progress being made at light speed within the sports world towards adopting AI. But that's what I see being the biggest change, and truly impactful change in the world of sports, that, content is going to be hyper personalized, and there's like all signals tend towards that.
Okay, perfect. Akshat, we'll move on to the next round into the podcast. That's the
Sure,
rapid fire round.
sure.
I'll ask you a few questions you will have no time to think about. You'll be have to quick in answering.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Coffee
Sounds
or tea while coding?
neither. I'm a Coke kind of guy.
Okay. Okay. First gadget you check every morning.
On my phone.
Favorite sports to watch live?
I only have loved one sport to my fullest. It's cricket.
Favorite sports to play?
That's probably also cricket, but I love playing soccer as well.
Okay. One AI tool you cannot live without.
It's probably ChatGPT and a bunch of notes, meeting transcribers, which I just cannot operate without.
Okay. Stadium or home TV? What's your ideal match experience?
This is a bit controversial, but for me, it's the TV, because like all my family memories have been built around the TV growing up on cricket matches, live cricket matches with India playing. It's always been the home TV.
Absolutely. One feature you wish existed in live sports broadcasting today.
Of course, like multilingual live streaming in every language. But actually, it's quite annoying because I watch like live sports a lot of times, and on some apps I find it impossible to rewind and ask questions and stuff. I just wish I could like play back more often and catch up to the sports more often, which I know some people have introduced, but it's missing on a lot of apps. I feel like every app should have that.
Okay. Your favorite sports commentator voice of all time.
Ravi Shastri, 100%. When I cannot,
Absolutely.
no true Indian person can ever get that moment out of their head when Dhoni hit a six and won the World Cup. And Ravi Shastri was commentating that. That's just like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
an his mind.
Absolutely. Team you secretly support, even if no one knows.
Yeah, so this is I would say it's a little bit embarrassing today, but I'm the typical Indian kid who grew up on both cricket and soccer. And of course, like the obvious answer is India, but like I used to play a lot of FIFA. I was in my like school soccer team. So I loved growing up Manchester United, especially the trio of Tevez, Ronaldo, and Rooney. That's when I was growing up. It was like the killer trio. But of course, saying that today is supporting Manchester United is kind of normie, and also like they're not doing too well. So, but I hope Manchester United makes a comeback in the biggest way possible.
True. Last question. Who's your favorite player of all time?
It has to be Kobe Bryant. I mean, a lot of people already know this about me in the sports world, but whenever I'm making a post on LinkedIn or even like I write an email to you, it will always be signed off with Mamba mentality. And yeah, even I said cricket and soccer were the sports that I watched and followed growing up. Basketball wasn't, and I'm not gonna lie about it, but I grew up kind of uh, hearing and watching Kobe's interviews, watching his plays, especially that time when he broke his Achilles and he still made the shot, the free throw. It just represented to me like somebody who would never say no to anything. And I love what Kobe once said when he said that it's one line that has always remained very dear to me and is representative of what we're building at Cambia. He said, when I go, I want to be remembered as that guy who overachieved. Um,
Yes.
and that says a lot to me because Cambia, we haven't built this company out of the heart of Stanford or Silicon Valley. We built this company out of Dubai and internationally so. Now we're in the US, now we're in Japan, we're in many different geographies, but we continue to operate as one of the main headquarters in Dubai. And we were always kind of told like, okay, for real, like what are you going to achieve building out of the middle of the desert, right? Like let's be real.
Yes.
Like it was almost like mocked and such when we started out, right? And I realized that kind of underdog mentality and just getting better every day while your competitors are like sleeping, you just staying up and remaining at the grind is what is hopefully I can say like have has had Cambia arrive to a certain stage in the sports world where we're a recognized brand and we're doing stuff that matters to both the fans and leagues. And kind of the best way to kind of round this out is building this company. I've realized that it's not language barriers that are a problem. Those will go away for sure. Like whether it's us or somebody else, those will be
Absolutely.
eliminated, but it's often the biases that lie behind language barriers. It's the assumptions of who can do what that will continue to remain. And I hope that when Cambia is super successful, we have not only broken language barriers, but we've actually broken those barriers that we all know exist between the shade of language, right? Or the shade of like where you come from and where you're operating from and such. And that's what gets us up out of bed every day. And that's kind of what our mission is.
We wish you all the best for that, Akshat.
Thank you. Thank you, Ami.
One last question. You'll have to answer it in 30 seconds.
Okay.
Like, how do you feel multilingual AI is making sports in at the global forum?
What do you exactly mean by that? Like, how's it making
Like,
it?
how is it impacting the global forum, the multi-language, voiceover, and the AI and everything like what is happening today
Yeah.
to the sports domain? How is it going global?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think AI will have an unprecedented impact on making content hyper localized, and we're already seeing that with Cambia, with other companies that are making content personalized in other ways. And so I think we're still at the precipice of this beginning, but within a few years, definitely within the 5 years, and if we were to be over optimistic, definitely within the next 2 years, you'll start to see a world where all content is made for the fans specifically, not for anybody else. And that's, localized on every mobile and laptop screen and TV screen for that particular fan or viewer. So that's, I think, what's to look forward to. And I think if there's anybody building in the AI sports tech world, it's just a very obvious kind of thing to it, like target of like hyper localizing experiences for the fans because it's going to be a default expectation.
Perfect. Thank you, Akshat, for joining
Yeah.
us today on the podcast and for the wonderful insights.
Thank you, Ami. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So, everyone, let's stay in touch. Please share this episode with your friends, family, and the people who love sports technology. We will meet next time in the next episode. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep exploring.